Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this Monday, the 7th of March, 2022. I got a wide range of topics I'm going to talk about. First thing I'm going to talk about is Bitcoin. So thank you for tuning in. Today's Monday, the 7th of March, and we're going to get started right away. We're going to talk about Bitcoin. I predicted this buying opportunity that we're in right now. I predicted that the price would go down as low as 29,000. Well, it bottomed out, I think it was in the low 30s, so I wasn't too far off. I'm here to announce this buying opportunity is coming to a close, meaning the price is probably going to go up again on Bitcoin. Start to go up in a not too distant future. And so, how high could Bitcoin go? Well, what we have is a situation where we're entering into the front side of a hyperinflation. And that front side is called the acceleration phase. Priced in dollars, because Bitcoin doesn't really have any price limits to it, it could go into the hundreds of thousands per coin. Considering that the Fed's going to have to support things like the banking system, and we have a red light on the banking system right now. It's called the MOVE Index, and it's indicating that there's instability in the credit markets. The MOVE Index has moved over 130 points. That's a strong red flag for me. The Fed's having to do things behind the scenes to support the markets. And what that's doing is it's increasing the liquidity in the system when they have to do things like that, because they've been drying the liquidity up through taper, what they call a taper, where they reduce their bond purchases. They're planning on raising interest rates and doing quantitative tightening, where I just don't see this as a mechanism to dry up liquidity. We're going to have to increase the liquidity, and we already have inflation. It's going to lead to a positive green light for Bitcoin to go back into a bull market again. Now, there's another thing happening in the world, and let's start the charts right here. Take a look. The food crises are about to get a lot worse. China says that the winter wheat condition could be the worst in history. So China's not producing much. Russia's wheat's all been cut off now. A big wheat producer was Ukraine, which is not producing anything. Now, with food crises, what happens is it doesn't, when you get a bad wheat crop or wheat gets cut off in the world, and also other food crops aren't coming in like they used to be, it takes a number of months before it makes its way into the marketplace. And then when it does, look out. Prices could go exorbitantly high, but that's not the real issue here is you'll still be able to buy it if you got the money, and prices could go exorbitantly high. But what happens when there's no food available, period? The food crisis is about to get worse in China. It's about to get worse all over the world. Basically, what we're up against right now is there's not enough food going around right now to support a population of 8 billion people. Somebody's probably going to end up going without. And probably a lot are going to end up going without. Now, I want to talk about something. I watch these shows called Mukbangs or Mukbangs or whatever, and I get a kick out of them. Generally, it's somebody that's extremely overweight or pretty overweight, or a lot of times morbidly obese, and they will lay out a spread of food in front of them that's typically enough for probably 10 people or maybe 15 people. A meal big enough for 10, 15 people, and then they'll eat it all by themselves. They'll gobble it down with a whole bunch of and ahs and and oh my goodness, the looks they'll make on their face when they're gobbling this food down. And I can't help but think, they must have their stomachs stretched, because they're eating enormous amounts of food, In some cases, your stomach is supposed to be the size of your fist. Clench your fist. That's how big your stomach's supposed to be. But I mean, that's about the size of a big, here in the United States and in Canada here, when you buy a chicken a thigh, it's about the size of your fist. I mean, we have big chickens, you know. So that'd be like one piece of chicken. And that should be, a person should be full, or pretty near full. What's happened is the stomach is an organ in the body, and there's a number of organs that can really stretch. Certain types of tissue in the body that can stretch. Your bladder is one type of tissue that can really stretch. Generally, things like the tissue around your ears, like a lot of people stretch their earlobes. You ever heard of that before? They put these big circles in their earlobes and they stretch them way out. And they remove the circle, you know, they got this big expanded earlobe. How did they get that back to normal size again? Is what I'm wondering. You guys must have seen that before, you know. But the stomach can stretch the same way. If you overeat, you're stretching your stomach. And after a while of overeating and overeating and overeating, on top of it, you keep stretching it bigger and bigger and bigger. And in the end, you got this enormous big empty sack that can take an enormous amount of food before you feel that signal saying, hey, I'm full. And the stomach, because it's a stretchy organ, it can be stretched back to normal size again if you stop indulging in eating to the point of overfullness. A lot of this has to do with listening to your body and being in tune with how your stomach feels and eating smaller meals more often, you know, and the stomach will start to shrink itself back again. But an awful lot of times, these people who are morbidly obese, they have to go in for these different types of surgeries, gastro type surgeries, you know, where the doctor will actually sew part of the stomach off or staple part of the stomach off, or maybe even remove part of the stomach where it's stretched. We live in a strange world, you know, a world of that has been a world of overabundance, but for a lot of people who are not morbidly obese, they're just a little bit what we in the old days would call chubby. You might want to embrace your fat, because at this point in time, you might need that fat, because that fat is stored food energy. And we're moving into a world here where there's not enough food to go around. It's just as simple as that. And so food prices are going to go extremely high. You're going to see bare shelves of a lot of items that you like to eat, you know, and the items maybe you don't even like to eat because all the other shelves of the items you want, food you like, is gone. You might have to settle on some kind of food that you don't like, and it might cost a lot more than you're used to paying. And so your body fat you have stored away, and you thought has been a problem for the last, I don't know how many years. You think, oh, I wish I could lose a little bit of weight. I wish your way of thinking might actually change to where you say, gee, you know, I'm losing weight. I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm losing weight simply because I can't get the foods I like to eat, and the foods I can't even actually get to eat are in short supply, and they cost an extreme amount of money. And I don't have the money. I got to have my rent to pay this month, and I got a food budget, and I'm just going to have to cut back on the amount that I have to eat, and then the weight starts to come off naturally. The world's changing very rapidly because of war, and so we have to get used to this new situation where food isn't like the way we used to look at it before. Very soon. I mean, I'm not saying right now. Right now, the grocery stores are still full. But this situation that's being caused right here is going to change all of that in the next 6 months. And what about these countries where they're third world countries instead of countries like we have over here in the West, where they might not have any food at all? If we start to run short, They might not have any food at all in some of these other countries, and the problem might escalate tremendously. Uh, we're living in a world full of fear right now. People are frightened of the future, and an awful lot of people. Some people are having it harder than others. Some people are having it good. Look at the rich people, but some people are having it pretty good, and other people are really having it bad. So listen, you don't know how the other person is having it in this. Like, if you say you go to your local store or whatever, and there might be somebody in there and it might be a little bit grumpy and stuff. They might be that way because they're having it really hard right now. Maybe they lost their job because of COVID or something. Maybe they can't find a new job. Maybe they haven't got enough money to buy food. Maybe they got hungry kids at home. Maybe their life situation might be so much worse than yours. This is why it's very important during this period in time that we're having right now to be polite to other people. And sometimes you have to take a little bit, like they might snap at you or something. Just don't snap back. Just stop and try to be considerate, even though with some people it's a little bit difficult. And if you can't be that way, my mother used to have an old saying: if you can't say nothing nice, don't say nothing at all. Anyway, I'm getting wandering off the topic a little bit. Thank you guys for listening to my show this morning. Like and subscribe. And remember, we're all going through this together. This is a very tough period in time that we're going through. It's what they call interesting times, but I just call it hard times, bad times, horrible times, and horrible times. This isn't the first time in history people went through a horrible time. If you go back to another similar period to this, was back during what was called the Spanish influenza, back in around the period of 1914 through 1918. They were going through a world war, and a tremendous amount of people were dying in the world war, and then they got hit with a vicious pandemic on top of that, on top of a world war. And the system almost come to a complete halt. I heard stories where some people said that back then they used to have the old type of old-fashioned mail, mail service. The mail almost stopped in places because they just couldn't even get the mail through. I mean, things just weren't working back then, and they were going through a very, very similar period in time to what we're going through right now. And it was tough. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.